Welcome to the Strategy Mob Podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me another episode of Strategy Mob. Today, I have two very special guests. I have the one, the only, Mr. Terry Lancaster.
What up, yo?
What up, Terry? And I have the oh-so-famous Georgas, also known as Gorgeous George.
All of the above, correct.
All the above. Hey, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. Hey,
glad to be here, man. Thanks for having us, Jason.
This is going to be
same here. Glad to be here,
a lot of fun. Hey, for everyone out there that's watching and listening right now and, don't know how you two fine gentlemen got started in the automotive industry, I thought it'd be cool to kind of kick off today's podcast with a couple origin stories. So, Terry, I'll start with you, and then George, I'll ask you the same question. How did you get started, Terry, in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
I was working at a radio station in a double-wide trailer on top of a mountain in Monterey, Tennessee, as a disc jockey. And when I realized that all the people who made any money at the radio station sold advertising, so I decided I was going to start selling advertising. And as soon as I graduated from college, I got a job selling advertising. And first place I walked into was a Ford dealership who practically threw me out. Didn't want to hear none of my nonsense. So I went across the street to a Mazda store and took over the town with the radio advertising. We ended up running that Ford dealer out of business, and they put a new dealer in that place. And I went and started his advertising, turned him into the number one Ford dealer in North Mississippi. So I've been working with car dealerships for decades, and a few years ago I decided that the most important way to reach more people was through your people, and that was the way advertising was going. The internet has made everyone every individual their own radio station. So that's what I've been doing lately, is helping individual salespeople become their own broadcast station to reach more people, make more friends, and sell more cars.
That's awesome. Hey, George, for yourself, now how did you get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
Well, my situation is not as exciting as Terry's. I wasn't hanging off the top of a mountain or anything like that. But I actually I wanted to get into sports marketing, ironically enough. And I was interviewing at a company that had an opportunity for somebody in the sports marketing department, because at the time, the Ford Motor Company was a client of theirs, and they had just entered into a sponsorship agreement with the Toronto Raptors. And they were looking for somebody to manage the relationship between the Toronto Raptors and the Ford Motor Company. And of course, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I walked in for the interview, and to make a long story short, the person that was interviewing me, who was the president of the company at the time, said, tell me what you know about basketball and how that relates to a car. And my story was good enough that I got the job. And over a couple of separate interviews, we actually drove to the Toronto Raptors office. This is before we actually had a handshake. He had asked me to put together a list of promotional possibilities for the Ford Motor Company to use in stadium and out of stadium. And when we went and presented to the VP of marketing at the Toronto Raptors, he came back and said, I love all these ideas. So then as I hopped back into the car with him, on the way back to the office, he reached over and shook my hand and he said, the good news is you got the job. And I said, great, but we haven't talked about anything yet. So what does that mean? And 25 years later, Jason, lots of opportunity. I've led agencies, traditional agencies on the automotive side, several different agencies with several different OEMs. And I've been fortunate to, now I fell in love. We've all fallen in love with the automotive industry. And of course, retail and automotive is unlike any other.
It truly is. I find a lot of people in our industry either literally fall into it or are born into it. But once it's in you, it's damn hard to get it out of you. Like, I mean, I just cannot imagine doing anything else. I mean, I've played in other verticals, but God, I love the car business. Like, it just is what it is. It's that challenge. And Terry, we were talking a little bit about that, off camera. It's just that creating those relationships and being a part of one of the largest purchases that someone's going to make. Well, since I got you both on the show today, I'm excited to kind of talk a little bit more about the social element of creating the relationship, and then also the marketing element of acquiring someone into that funnel so that we have an opportunity to create that relationship. I find sometimes when we're talking about marketing and acquisition, is everything kind of gets bucketed into this one bucket, and there's just so many different elements of it. So, Terry, I'm going to kind of start with you. What does it mean, to social sell?
Well, you said you love the car business. We all love the car business. And I'm going to tell you the thing I love the most about the car business, and most of the people in the car business probably love most about the car business, is the fact that every human being you've ever met in North America, in Australia, New Zealand, wherever too, the virtual 99.99% of every human being you ever met or ever going to meet is going to be a car buyer. It's someday. The market is huge. The world is a target-rich environment, and people prefer to buy from people they know, like, and trust. I read an article yesterday that said 87% of all consumers would pay extra for a better consumer experience. And the consumer experience starts long before they walk into the dealership. It starts when they first hear your name or they first meet you. And so people would prefer to buy from people they know, like, and trust. 97% of them would prefer to know who they're buying from before they set foot in the dealership, because going in to make that second largest purchase is scary. And car dealers don't have the best reputation. So people avoid it as long as possible unless they have a friend in the car business. And that's what social selling is, to be a friend in the car business before they get ready to make the purchase, so they know who you are before they start shopping, so they know who to call when they're ready to buy. And it's just calling another friend, going in and doing a deal. And then you maintain that relationship much longer, a year after the sale, when 9 out of 10 car buyers can't even remember the name of the person that they bought the car from. You maintain the relationship down the line, so you get more reviews, more referrals, and more repeat business to bring it back to the top of the funnel.
And I hate to say it, but as an industry, I don't think we do a great job of setting up our sales team for that opportunity. I mean, when we look at our marketing messages, I mean, those messages out there aren't like, hey, let's create a relationship, let's help you find that product. No, our marketing messages are huge discounts, low lease rates, one day only. Like, that doesn't necessarily sound like you want to make a connection with me, but I think the dealerships out there that are executing well realize that if they're going to set up their sales team to create that social relationship, then it starts with the marketing. To your point, Terry, the engagement with the dealership starts way before they actually come into the dealership. And that first message they hear on the radio or the first ad they see, digitally, that sets the stage. And, George, just kind of lead me into my next question for you is, a lot of dealerships out there, when it comes to running the marketing campaigns, is kind of like this one message campaign of just big stuff. And that's not necessarily the case. So I would love to hear kind of your thoughts on, what the message should look like, to help set up our sales team so that they can socially sell.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I mean, at the end of the day, it's there has to be a different message for each phase in that purchase funnel, right? Awareness. It's a completely different message when you are telling people who you are. I mean, you have to let them know who you are. The manufacturers don't do a great job for you as an individual dealer from an awareness perspective. So you have to make sure that you're making people aware that you're in the community and you exist. And then when you take it a step below, awareness is the consideration phase. And the consideration is, tell me why you are better. Tell me why you're better. And that needs to be communicated at a different level. It's different than your awareness message. This is your consideration message. Here's why I'm better. And then comes your purchase message, which you had mentioned earlier, Jason. It's about, here's your discount. Here's your financing rate. And that's the message that you're trying to convey, or it's family pricing, but those messages are often the ones that hit first. And then there's a disconnect. So it starts with what Terry was saying on the social side, developing that relationship, generating the awareness. That's a separate message. The consideration, tell me why you're better. That's a separate message. And then you've earned the right to say, not only am I better, here's my pricing.
No, you're totally right. I mean, I don't think it's fair that we just smack them across the face with a big discount and expect that's going to be enough that they're actually going to want to create a relationship with me. It's like we can't just market at a customer. We need to market to the customer. And Terry, this kind of leads me into my next question for you is, in that consideration phase, we have to tell them why they would want to even create a relationship with us. I mean, Terry, what would you say to that? I mean, how does a dealership define that?
Well, you define that by talking about the experience that the customer wants. I mean, whether you got a $12,000 discount on your new F-150s or whether you're having your one day only sale, that's not the customer's viewpoint. Everything from an individual level and from the dealership level, we need to think about, we're in this to serve them, to serve the car buyers. And the thing they're looking for is not necessarily the biggest discount. I mean, no one wants to get robbed, but they're looking for that great experience. Like I said, just read 86% say they would pay extra for a better experience. And the experience they're looking for is fast. They want it done much faster. So if you want to get them in there and slow them down and grind them for a few extra bucks, that's going to end up hurting the experience. So they want it fast, they want it fun, they want it fair, and they want it friendly, which means another human being. They would prefer to deal with the same customer, with the same salesperson through the process. And if that was somebody they already had a relationship with, people who have a prior relationship with their salesperson before they get to the dealership, they close faster, they're more likely to close, they leave bigger grosses, and they give you higher CSI scores. It's a win-win for everybody if you just make more friends.
Well, it goes to the three old P's. I remember the three P's when I first started in the business: product, price, and people, right? Yeah. And it seems like from our marketing perspective, all we focus is on price. But Terry, to your point, people buy and continue to do service and buy with you is because of the people and the product. If you don't, it's not so price driven. So George, from a marketer's perspective, I think, people is a big part of the message that we need to put out there. But I think for a lot of dealerships, they just don't know how. Like, how do I market my people? George, I'd like to get your thoughts on that. And Terry, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you talk about people, everybody has a different personality. So to market people in general is a difficult thing. I think what you try to market is the overall experience that people are going to get when they come to your dealership. It's not, in my opinion, it's not necessarily the individual person, because there is a uniqueness to every individual. And it's hard for me as a dealer principal to talk to you about Jason today specifically, or talk to you about Terry specifically today. But I think it's the experience that Terry was hitting on that we can leverage and market the overall experience, the efficiencies that you are going to actually get by walking through my store and speaking to my salespeople. I know a lot of people today, well, in today's environment, guys, it's really about, a lot of this happens online today. I mean, you could literally purchase a car from inside your home, but you should still be getting that personalized experience from your dealer. So even buying a car from dealer to dealer, their experiences are probably going to be different online. So there's a special opportunity for dealers right now to create their own individual experiences that are unique to them, that will draw customers in, and generate those opportunities, those lasting opportunities, because we talk about loyalty. So I'm going to get you in the door. Price might get you in the door, but the experience is going to keep you there. And that's kind of I hope I answered that question for you.
No, for sure. I mean, Terry, your thoughts, do you market experience, people, or a combination of both? What do you think?
Well, I think the people are the experience. I think it's the same thing. I think we have a human experience when we're doing this. So we want it to be a human experience, and that means you have to have humans doing it, not robots, right? So there's number one: fewer robots, more people. The other thing, the two things, you teach your salespeople to market themselves. The sales job has changed in nature. We used to, 90% of the sales job used to be going out and prospecting and forming the relationships and bringing them in. But now the internet has taken everything away. Everybody knows everything before they get to us, and salespeople don't market themselves anymore. But things are flipping around, and the salespeople who are dominating are becoming expert marketers. So give your people the tools and technology to market themselves, to form those relationships, to form those networks that you're going to be fishing from a little while. The other way, the way you humanize the experience, the way you market your salespeople and bring them kicking and screaming, even if they don't want to, is to make video a huge part of the sales process, because it humanizes the experience. It's eyeball to eyeball contact. Your salespeople can do it one-to-one, and you can take videos of your salespeople and do mass marketing. You can take video profiles of your salespeople and put them on your webpage. Use those as mini marketing materials to humanize the element. And just 100 years ago, we used to lay out newspaper ads that had the entire sales staff on the bottom. The pictures of this. Yeah, but you go to most dealers' webpage. You go to the team. You go to the team page. There's 3 pictures that are blank of somebody's name on them. We just don't promote the salespeople. We have lots of opportunity to promote the salespeople and help them promote themselves through the technology we already have. And if we combine that with video and push these out, that's a lot of human relationships buying a lot of cars.
Now, I'm with you. I mean, I agree with you. I think the people do kind of define the experience, but as a dealership, I feel like as a dealer principal, as a dealership, right, I need to help them define what that experience is. And, that kind of comes down into, what makes your dealership, different than your competitors. And honestly, when I ask that question, Terry and George, you guys probably get the same stupid answers. I'm family owned. Who the hell cares if you're family owned? I've been in business for 25 years. Well, so was the Hilton family. No one cares the fact that they're owned by a family. So it's like, so how does a dealership kind of define, what makes them different for their competitors, so that those differences can be translated into an experience? Georgia, I'll start with you, and then Terry, I'll ask you kind of the same question. How do we help a dealership define what differentiates them from their competition?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. And you know what? There's no silver bullet answer here, right? It's honestly, each individual dealership has a uniqueness about them, and it's not their family owned, but there is a narrative that they all have. There is a uniqueness about them that they all have that needs to be told. And that's what's actually going to make people come into your dealership specifically. If they are attached somehow to your narrative, to your story, to your people, and we keep coming back to the humanization of this. If they're attached somehow, that's why I feel like community involvement for specific dealerships is so important, to establish those relationships. And whether you're a dealer and you start with sponsorships of little league teams and so on and so forth, those are important. And that actually draws and builds your relationship and differentiates you from the guy down the street who may not be involved in the community. So there are a number of different ways to do that, but you're all individually unique. It's how you communicate that message, I think, that's going to separate you from everybody else. And today, a lot of people are doing things right, but many are not doing anything at all. And that is the challenge. There has to be a consistency. So today, everybody's hunkered down because, and saying, I don't want to spend any marketing dollars for my social platforms. I don't want to do this. Well, frankly, that's the wrong answer, in my opinion. You need to actually tell people you're open for business. Things have changed. We're not denying that. But there's a number of ways that we can still generate that experience and exposure of our products and services to you guys. And Terry already jumped on it with video. I can do a vehicle walk around. I can show you, you bring your car in for service. I can tell you why you need new brakes. Here, let me hold up my phone camera and FaceTime you and show you why there's some wear and tear. So all those things combined, I think, help you accomplish that uniqueness about you. So but the point is that you have to do something. You just can't sit on your hands.
Well, you have to define it, right?
Yes.
You can't just let the salespeople define it for you. You can't let the customer define it for you, because the customer will define it, right, Terry? I mean, you can go read reviews, and it will straight up, within those reviews, it will say good or bad. All right. What made you different from some other company? So Terry, I'd love to get your kind of thoughts on this as well. It's like, how do we help a dealership kind of define what makes them unique or different from their competition?
Well, here's a common misunderstanding about branding and reputation and all of that too. What the business says and what the dealer defines it as doesn't mean squat, right? You can say anything you want. That's not what your brand is. You can call yourself anything you want. That's not what your reputation is. The only thing that matters is what the customer says your reputation is, what the customer says your brand is, what the customer says in those reviews that they're writing everywhere. So that's what you have to manage, not the words that you spit out, but the experience that you're actually giving that's creating this thing that you want to create. And you have to manage that. And the only differentiation you're going to have, the manufacturers have made all the buildings look the same. All the advertising sounds the same. All the pricing is the same. They all come from the same factory. The only thing that's going to differentiate your store from every other store in North America is the people who work there and the experience they provide. So that's your only differentiation. And that's the only way that you can manage the reputation and what your customers are saying about you. You have to put your people out there and make them happy. You have to build this culture, because happy salespeople create happy customers. Happy employees all over create happy customers. And you have to build this thing organically that keeps it going, so that every time I talk about video, but if the salesperson's a miserable cuss and hates his job and hates his dog and hates his wife and everything else, you don't want him on video, right? Because he's a miserable cuss on video, the same as he is on person. So you need people who are happy and enjoy their jobs and are ready to help people, and then get out there and do it and sing about it to the wind. If they learn that they can support themselves and build their own businesses by singing your praises, they will sing your praises all day long.
No, that's so true, Terry. I mean, look, if we don't take the time to at least try to identify or define what we would like our brand to be, and I say would like, because to your point, Terry, we don't define our brand. All right, our customers and our employees end up defining our brand, but we got to give them direction. We got to give them look, our brand is going to be about speed. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. So we have to empower the team so that they know from an operations perspective, this is fast. All right, we do things quick. We're gonna do, the test drive. We're gonna do the trade appraisal, and we're gonna do, the payment presentation all at the exact same time, because we're trying to make everything quick. But I think that's where dealerships kind of get stuck, is that they don't at least define how they want to be presented as a brand. And then what ends up happening, to both of you guys' points, is that the customer just ends up doing it, right? Now, I go back to this, and I would feel, and I did as a dealer principal, that the agency I was working with should be assisting me with this. But I got to be honest with you, most agencies that work with dealerships, I usually hear this one stupid question get asked every single month. What do you want to advertise? I'm like, what do you mean what I want to advertise? I feel like, and I'm on the agency side, so I can do a little tough love here. And George, you are too, I think I got to, break some agency balls out there a little bit and say, come on, guys. We need to be doing a better job for our clients. Terry and George, you guys have both, defined what a customer cares about, and then that experience. But then I look at every single bloody ad out there, and I very seldomly ever see an ad about the experience. So here's a question I have for you guys, and it's about agency. It's like, what are 3 things should every dealership do to hold a digital marketing agency accountable? All right, to support their brand efforts. George, I'll start with you, and then Terry, I'll kind of ask you the same question. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. So one more time, 3 things, all right, an agency or a dealership should be doing to hold their agency accountable, to support their branding efforts.
Well, so 3. So let me start with 1. Let me get 1 out of, if I can here. So 1 is they need to develop, if we're talking about, so it's interesting, if we're talking about branding, I think we would rather, in this particular case, in the context of this podcast, we're talking about the experience. So the experience, the overall experience is, how do you get that message across? Are you getting it across? So from a creative perspective, what does that look like? From a copy perspective, what does that look like? From a deployment perspective, in terms of tactics, which tactics are we utilizing? And ultimately, how you hold them accountable is, whatever tactics you're utilizing, the proof is in the numbers, guys, at the end of the day. Let's see how many eyeballs were on this thing. Are we doing some social posts? Are we doing some television ads? Are we doing radio spots? The numbers actually don't lie. That's age-old adage. We've all used that, right? So, and to me, that is first and foremost in terms of holding an agency accountable. Now, there are certain things that come into play that you have to realize. So today's environment is different than it was 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. So you have to take those factors into account. But we also know by now, if over the last 3 months you haven't changed your messages and your approach and your tactics, you're lost. So from an agency perspective, you really have to step up your game and bring the solutions that are required for today's environment. And you guys know the automotive industry changes so quickly. It's literally daily, because you're trying to keep up to your manufacturers too, right? GM will come out with an offer. Ford has to match or do better. All the manufacturers kind of fall in line from there. I mean, you see that on a daily basis. Somebody drops a rate, we've got to do it too. So again, I don't know whether I managed to sneak 3 in there, Jason.
Oh, you definitely got a couple.
I think I kind of I snuck them all in there at the same time. But that's really important, is really to hold them accountable to measurement in the current environment.
You're totally right. I mean, I hate to say it, but I've gone to a bunch of dealerships' websites, and it looks like nothing's changed. during this entire time, nothing's changed for them whatsoever. And I think a lot of it just kind of has to do with lazy agencies. Terry, what's your thoughts on, we talked a lot about the importance of the brand, the importance of the experience. How do we hold our agencies accountable to ensure that they are actually executing on those messages?
Well, I'm going to take trouble with your premise. I'm not sure it's the agency that we need to hold accountable. Because as an agency, if I'm producing advertising for a dealership, or even if I'm a salesperson selling for that dealership and promoting myself to my own audience and doing my own Facebook Lives and doing my own thing, the message that I have to deliver has to come from the dealership. If I own an agency and I go to the dealer and go, my research proves that customers would much prefer to be in and out in under an hour. We need to advertise. We're closing the deal 1 hour, one price, one person, the whole 9 yards. We're fast, fun, friendly, and fair. But we need to hammer this speed element. And meanwhile, that dealership works on the old school where they got to go through 3 boxes to get everybody through, and they're going to spend 2 hours in finance, and they're going to spend 2 hours before they ever even get to finance, and they don't function that way. Then that's incongruous. There's a disconnect there between what we're advertising. So the message has to come from the culture. That's where the experience comes in. You have to create an experience worth talking about. If you want people to share your story, give them a story worthy of the tale.
Yeah, just to add to that, if I could, Jay, really what I think the dealership has to define for the agency is what the objectives are. And if you can define to me what your objectives are, I'm going to build a strategy and tactics that will support and ultimately attain the objectives that you're telling me. That's what my agency experience is. I am the so-called expert from an agency perspective that's going to generate the results, but I need to know what your objectives are. And then I can actually help build a marketing plan and strategy, and then the executional tactics fall out of that, right?
No, that's totally true. I mean, think about this. How can we come up with how do we get there if we don't know where we're going? And I see that happen a lot. I mean, we're talking about branding, we're talking about sales, we're talking about salespeople's, personal development. Like, if there's not a goal actually in mind, then what we end up doing is we just execute on good ideas. And I don't know about you guys, but I hate good ideas because good ideas don't usually root in some type of true goal and objective. So why is this? I mean, Terry, you've been in the business. George, you've been in the business for a long time. As an industry, why do we find it so difficult to actually be able to sit down and create real goal and objectives outside of, I just want to sell more cars? Terry, I'll start with you.
Because that's the only objective we've ever talked about. That's what we told the salesperson on the first day when he got hired at the dealership. That's what the general manager told him when he promoted him to sales manager. That's what he was told when he went to general sales manager. That's what they're told every Saturday when they had the meeting. That's what the manufacturer tells them the day after the month closes when they're trying to get the numbers. That's what the money's based on. That's what the bonuses are based on. That's what the incentives are based on. That's what whether the dealership fails or succeeds is based on. That's all we talk about because that's all we talk about.
It's been done that way for 100 years. And that's the challenge, Jay, that it's always been. How many times have you ever gotten into a conversation with a dealer principal, salesperson, anybody? So why do you do it this way? Because that's the only way it's ever been done. We've been doing it the same way for 100 years. And that's why in today's world, in this COVID pandemic era that we live in, it's so challenging for them because they have to do things differently. And it's a challenge for them. Some dealerships were closed, like the showrooms were closed, but I still want to generate sales. Well, you can't do it the same way. So how do you evolve that? And that is the challenge. good ideas are good ideas, Jay, to your point. But without an objective and a strategy, and I'm in line with sales actually conquers all. There are no issues if you hit your numbers. I'm all for that. But today, hitting numbers today is different than it was 3 months ago, you know, 6 months ago.
Well, that's because I think we're just totally stuck on this whole volume thing. And I blame the manufacturers for this 100%. I mean, when I first started in the business, volume was important. Profitability was everything. And I mean, Terry, you started in the business early enough to remember that a happy customer paid more. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and it's still true.
Right? It's still true. So at what point in time did, as an industry, we shift to say, I don't give a shit how happy my customer is. All right. I just want to sell, volume. And then, damn, we're looking at the profitability per transaction. We're going, what the hell happened? So how do we go back to that?
Then you're telling your salespeople, hey, we need to sell more accessories. We need to sell more. We need to upsell other areas because the profitability has gone away. It's a great question, Jason. It's a fundamental thing it's a fundamental shift for many OEMs and dealers. The whole volume thing is an interesting concept.
Well, we got to back up to make them happy. Sorry, go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, and I don't think it's accidental. I think it's a conspiracy. I'll put on my tinfoil hat. I've said it before. I think the manufacturers and the giant third-party corporations, they don't care if there's any profit in the car. They're about the volume. They're about, like Carvana. Carvana doesn't sell cars. Carvana sells stock. General Motors sells stock. They're all pushing to get a stock bonus. And if I think they see the potential to drive the dealer system out of the equation, do it all digital retailing straight from the manufacturer. What do we need a dealer for that for? So we've got to ruin this business model so that they can't make a living, and then we'll have the whole pie to ourselves. I think that's the plan.
I like that. I'm going to be for that. I think I need a T-shirt of that conspiracy theory. We have to come up with a name for it. but no, like let's say, look, there's some dealerships out there right now that are listening and watching to this, and they're shaking their heads and they're agreeing with us that the goal should be to create happy customers. But I think it's been such a long time as an industry to say that has been our ultimate goal and objective that we've gotten away from even understanding what does that mean. So I would like to hear kind of both of you guys' thoughts on what does it mean, right, to create a happy customer. Terry, I'll start with you, and then George, I'll ask you the same question.
Happy customer goes home and tells other people about what a great job you did. That's a happy customer. You don't have a happy customer until they're an evangelist. And, we just bought a car the other day. My wife bought a car and she came home and was perfectly content, was in and out, had a great time. The salesperson, was super polite, got everything she wanted. A year ago, my daughter bought a car, had a horrible experience, and has badmouthed that dealership at every chance she gets. So a happy customer is one who drives home happy and is spreading the word about you, because cars don't come in one, cars come in pairs. My daughter got a car last year. My wife got a car this year. I'll probably get a car next year. You can't sell one car to a household. They come in pairs, and you have to organically grow that. And so the first dealership didn't have a happy customer because they didn't get the second car. We'll see how the new dealership does.
And what I'm finding right now is that, like my neighbor just picked up a truck and he bought it in April. I mean, literally right in the thick of it, right? And he had to do over 85% of the transaction online. And, he said it was his 8th car or something like that he's bought. He was like, it was the best experience I've ever had. And of course I had to ask why. Well, I didn't have to spend 4.5 hours in a dealership. I'm like, okay, well, that definitely helps. And B, it was on my time, my schedule. I talked to the sales manager on the phone. We did a video chat. Then when I had time, I did a video chat with the F&I manager. Like, it was on that time. So I'm almost finding right now, the pandemic, this kind of sounds a little crazy, has actually generated happier customers, because as an industry, we're forced to actually now create an experience and a process that the customer wants, not what necessarily what we want, because we just want to come in the door. The customer wants to be able to engage the way they want to, and in a lot of cases that's from home, because now that's the way we're just used to engaging when it comes to retail. George, I'd love to get your kind of thoughts though on like, how do we generate a happy customer?
So I got to agree with Terry on this one point in particular, and I'm just sharing my own experience. When I bought my last car, I had such a pleasant experience with my dealership. And of course, I loved my car. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought my car. I went back and I immediately shared that with my neighbor. It's the power of referral, which is incredible. And no matter, we as a marketer, that there's no better ROI than somebody actually telling somebody else or sharing their experience with somebody else. And when you're in market, go there, see this person, you'll be taken care of. Tell them I sent you. You'll be taken care of. There is nothing better. A happy customer will sell, 10 cars at a time versus, you spending thousands of dollars marketing to individuals to get 10 different people inside that dealership. It is incredible, the power of a happy customer. And your overall experience, dealership experience, whether it's in today's marketplace, Jay, where a lot of things happen online, or whether it's inside the dealership and how you're treated. But I think the customer is also demanding the way they want to be treated today. I think they walk in the door and say, because I've already done my research online, and say, I want this car, and I want these wheels, and I want this price. Can you do it? And if the person says, well, come and sit with me, and kind of beats around the bush or whatever, they're like, I don't get a warm and fuzzy. I need a warm and fuzzy. But if somebody says, absolutely, let's go through this thing, and they're happy. So they're customers today are demanding to buy cars on their terms, because they've done the research. And if you're able to deliver, for the most part, on customers' terms, and they love that experience, they'll be back. Their kids are going to be buying cars. They trust mom and dad's opinion. They're going to go in there. That's just the way it is. So customer happiness is so important, and it costs nothing but effort.
That's what it is. It's effort. And you know what? Right now, given the current situation, it's the effort that we're putting into it. There is no magic pill that we can sell dealers, even though I wish there was, that will help them sell more cars. All right, we are going to have to process our way to profitability, and that is actually building process around creating relationships. I mean, kicking it old school, the way I started selling cars, right? It is building a process around our marketing. It's not enough just to slap an ad out there that says big discounts. Like, the customer needs to know what that experience is. And I know it sounds weird, but it's a silver lining. This pandemic has pushed us now back into an age where the happy customer is our goal and objective. And I think moving forward, a lot of dealerships are getting, comfortable with operating however they're able to operate based on where they are in the world or the country, and the focus should be happy. It should be how to create a happy customer. And I think we're going to be getting away from dealerships right now. I know the ones I'm talking to, like, they don't care what their volume is. They care what their profitability is. And they know the happier the customer, the more profitability it is. Now, guys, I know it's getting towards the tail end of our conversation. I'm sure we can jam a lot longer. So I get to ask my last question of the day. And I prepared you before, so I have big expectations here.
I forgot.
Forgot. All right. Mr. Terry Lancaster, your final question of the day is, what is pissing Terry off?
Well, I tell you, Jason, and this is why I don't get invited on podcasts. People hate this, because I don't get pissed off. I don't get pissed off, man. I'm water off a duck's back, baby. Every day above ground is a good day. I'm going to make the best of whatever the situation is, come hell or high water. And me getting pissed off about something, I don't do nothing but raise my blood pressure, and I don't need to raise my blood pressure. So I'm going to do what I got to do. Let everything else take care of itself. So doesn't take care of much podcast fodder, but I guess I'm pissed off because I don't get pissed off enough.
There we go. I think that's great. Terry just is pissed off because he doesn't get pissed off enough. All right, George, I know you well enough. I know there's something pissing you off. So, Mr. Georgas, what is pissing you off?
So this is a little bit of a personal thing, but I'm pissed off because I can't be at my cottage right now doing this live from my cottage because it's under renovation. And I have to wait another week and a half, so I'm told, according to the contractor, before I can step in there. So that is what's pissing me off. I should be doing this with the big lake in the background, but I'm not.
Well, I think that would piss me off too. Hey guys, for everyone out there that's watching and listening right now and would love to connect with you fine gentlemen, what is the best way to do so? Terry, I'll start with you.
So number one, if you want to know anything about Terry, go ask Google. Google knows everything there is to know about Terry. I can't hide from the mafia because it's all right there. So Google Terry Lancaster, and if you're you work at the dealership, go ahead and text the word Terry. Text Terry to 33777. I'll send you an introductory bio, my little video about me, and I'll help you figure out a way to tell the world about you.
That's very cool. Hey, George, for yourself, what is the best way to connect with you?
You can connect with me either through our company website, which is vitchamus.com, or you can send me an email at ggeorgas@vitchamus.com. That's the best way to connect with me, and I'm happy to chat, answer any questions, and just talk about the industry. We started saying we're all passionate about it. We bleed it. It's in our blood. Happy to chat about it anytime.
Awesome. Hey, thanks guys for taking the time to jam with me today. This has been a lot of fun.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.